quiet. Olympic gymnast Kayla Maroney says USA Gymnastics coerced her into signing a $1.2 million settlement so she would not say a word about alleged sexual abuse by the team's longtime doctor, Larry Nassar. That doctor, Dr. Nassar, now in prison, serving 60 years for child porn. Maroney is an American Olympic star, a gold medalist. Her performance, her unimpressed face, went viral during the Olympics in 2012. She says Dr. Nassar sexually abused her during medical exams before, during, and after trainings and competitions. The alleged abuse started when she was 13 and continued until she turned 15. Since Maroney went public with her story, dozens of women athletes have come forward with their own charges of abuse at the hands of Larry Nassar. Last hour, I spoke with Rachel Denhollander. She was the first gymnast to go public with her story of Nassar's abuse. And she says none of this is a surprise.
If anyone has taken the time to look at USAG's policies and USAG's handling of sexual assault, they will know that USAG has a long-standing, decades-long policy of silencing sexual assault victims. You know, Steve Penny, the former president, even testified under oath in a trial with a USAG coach who was found to have been sexually abusing his athletes, and characterized those who came forward against this coach as witch hunters. USAG has had a policy of not reporting sexual assault allegations, of burying the files, literally, in a file cabinet. IndyStar published an explosive report that really started all of this, where they found that USAG had buried sexual assault allegations against 54 member coaches over a 10-year period, literally in a file cabinet, allowing these coaches to hop from gym to gym, sexually abusing little girls. So when you have an organization that has a decades-long policy of silencing sexual assault victims and supporting the predators, it should be no surprise that they're treating their own gold medal athletes this way too. They're not going to want to acknowledge the fact that they have been silencing sexual assault victims for decades. They don't want to acknowledge the long-standing problems in their organization. But the reality is they were dealing with, really a child who was terribly wounded, and they took advantage of the psychological state that she was in, and they held money over her head to keep her quiet. And so even to have the two-faced approach where they have had her sign a non-disclosure agreement, but then publicly are discussing the exact same things that they're not allowing her to discuss, that's despicable.
With me now, Kayla Maroney's lawyer, John Manley. John, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Carol.
John, why did your client sign this agreement to keep silent, in essence? Why did she do it?
Well, it's like so many other victims signed. Ms. Maroney was approached by USA Gymnastics private investigator in 2015, and with whether or not she was assaulted by Larry Nassar, and she was. And from that moment, for the next year and a half, she descended into the emotional abyss. She went from a successful athlete with advertising contracts, with endorsement deals, with a burgeoning acting career, to somebody who couldn't get out of bed. Her mother described it to the court in the child pornography case as being one where she was afraid every day when she went into her room she'd find her dead. Ms. Maroney was in no way able to litigate a lawsuit. What she wanted was help for, her. And so she hired a lawyer in May and asked to meet with USAG to discuss a resolution. Not to sign a confidentiality agreement, but to get some money for her damages because they did something wrong for what happened to her. So they offered her this money, but at the end it came with a hitch. And the hitch was, you can't discuss this with your extended family, meaning your brother and sister. You can't discuss it with boyfriends, friends, your physician. And then you can't even badmouth, you can't say anything about USA Gymnastics ever. And if you do any of those things, or if your parents do any of those things, we can sue you for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But she found herself in a situation where she was damned if she did and damned if she didn't. So she signed it as a way to try to get help. And the truth is, under California law, that agreement should never have been put to her by USA Gymnastics because it's unenforceable. There's a Civil Code of Civil Procedures section right on point. But they did it anyway. And so I hope that answers your question.
So something I don't understand then. I mean, it's out. I mean, we know Dr. Nassar allegedly abused dozens and dozens of young women. He's in prison now for child porn for 60 years. U.S. Gymnastics is talking about his abuse. So why won't they let your client out of her confidentiality agreement? What difference does it make now?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, yesterday they had a perfect opportunity to say, yeah, we signed it, yeah, we presented it to her, and that was a mistake, and it was wrong, and it was a different president, and now we're going to do something different. And they didn't do that because Michaela wakes up every day concerned there's going to be a process server at her door since she went public about this in October. And she's very courageous for doing it. And what she finally decided is, I could face financial ruin, my parents could get sued, I could get sued, but I am not going to be silent, and I'm not going to carry Larry Nassar's secret, and I'm not going to carry USA Gymnastics' secret. Technically, her statement to the court in Grand Rapids about when he was sentenced for child pornography, when she asked for the maximum sentence, violates the agreement because it's the only exception to it is whether she would subpoena. She was subpoenaed. This organization is supposed to protect little boys and little girls. That's their customer. And what they did to one of the most famous athletes and one of their marquee athletes and somebody who brought honor to our country, she stood there with her hand over her heart while the flag was played, won a gold medal. They just ran her over and then basically put a legal gun to her head and said, if you say anything, essentially, we're going to get you. And then yesterday they put out a statement saying this was her idea. That's just a lie, or it was her attorney's idea. That's a lie. It's not true. And,
yes,
and
U.S.
what's most significant,
said her attorney at the time was Gloria Allred. Gloria Allred approached them, and she wanted this type of agreement. That's what they said. But then U.S. Gymnastics went on to say that, they support Michaela and other athletes who've been abused in any way they can, and they're proud of their courage for coming forward.
Yeah, if they support Michaela coming forward, why didn't they relieve her from the agreement months ago? They're speaking out of both sides of their mouth, and there are probably other agreements like this. If they support victims coming forward, release every victim that you've made sign one of the agreements all over the country. The Catholic bishops did it. And if your sex abuse policy is worse than the Catholic hierarchy, you're in trouble. And this is our country. This has USA in front of it. This is the Olympic movement. The USOC said yesterday, the U.S. Olympic Committee, we didn't know about this. Okay, I take you at your word. Then do something about it. Tell USA Gymnastics they have to get rid of their board or decertify them so this never happens to another athlete. If they would do this to Michaela, who's one of the most famous athletes in the world, can you imagine what they do to somebody in Topeka, Kansas, who was molested by their coach? This is just shocking.
John Manley, I have to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, ma'am.